The sun had barely begun to rise, casting soft pastels across the sky as Clara drove down the winding road that led to her grandmother's old cottage. With each turn, the world around her transformed. The bustling city gave way to sprawling fields, and the scent of fresh grass replaced the concrete and exhaust fumes. It was a journey she had taken countless times as a child, but now as an adult, the nostalgia washed over her like a gentle tide, stirring memories of laughter and warmth. As she approached the cottage, nestled in a glade of wildflowers and whispering willows, a sense of calm enveloped her. The weathered wooden structure stood strong, draped in ivy that climbed its walls like an old friend. Clara parked her car and stepped out, inhaling deeply. A symphony of scents greeted her, the sweet aroma of blooming honeysuckle mingling with the earthy undertone of damp soil after last night's rain. With the sun rising higher, the golden light danced through the branches, dappling the path that led to the front porch. Clara climbed the steps, her heart racing with anticipation. As she pushed open the door, it creaked just as she remembered a familiar sound that echoed her childhood adventures. Inside, the cottage was just as she had left it, filled with the remnants of her grandmother's love. Hand-stitched quilts, books lined neatly on shelves, and the faintest hint of lavender that lingered in the air. Clara wandered into the small kitchen, her fingers grazing the cool surface of the countertop. Here, memories unfolded like the pages of a cherished storybook. The smell of cookies baking, the sound of her grandmother's laughter, the warmth of shared secrets over steaming cups of tea. Today, she had come to find solace, to reconnect with the woman who had shaped her into who she was. Outside, the birds began their morning chorus, and Clara stepped onto the porch, the wooden boards cool beneath her bare feet. She leaned against the railing, looking out over the meadow that stretched toward the horizon, where the sun now hung bright and bold. As the day unfolded before her, she felt a stirring in her heart, a promise of discovery, of healing, and perhaps a hint of magic lingering just beyond the trees. As Clara stepped inside the cottage, the familiar scent of lavender and aged wood enveloped her like a warm embrace. The sun filtered through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the worn floorboards, each one telling a story of its own. Clara's fingers brushed against the faded wallpaper adorned with cheerful blooms, a print her grandmother had chosen to match the wildflowers that flourished outside. It was as if the cottage itself was a living diary, chronicling the love and care her grandmother had poured into every corner. With a deep breath, Clara walked toward the small kitchen, where the memories of baking cookies and sipping sweet tea flooded her senses. On the table, she noticed a small tin box, its surface dusted with time. Her heart raced as she recognized it. It contained her grandmother's handwritten recipes. Clara picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly, and opened the lid. Inside, she found not only recipes but also notes scrawled in her grandmother's looping handwriting, filled with personal anecdotes and love notes about each dish. As Clara read through the recipes, a wave of inspiration washed over her. She had long abandoned her passion for cooking, buried beneath the demands of a hectic life. But here, in this quaint kitchen, she felt a spark igniting within her, fueled by the memories of laughter shared over flour-dusted countertops. She decided then and there that she would honor her grandmother's legacy by recreating one of those cherished recipes. The afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky as Clara gathered ingredients from the cottage's pantry. There were preserves made from summer berries, jars of honey and flour that still held the scent of her grandmother's hands. As she mixed and stirred, she felt the presence of her grandmother beside her, guiding her every move. The soft crackle of the old stove and the gentle hum of the kettle served as a comforting backdrop, intertwining with the whispers of the wind that danced through the open window. Just as Clara was about to slide the tray into the oven, a sudden rustle outside caught her attention. Curious, she moved to the window and peered into the garden. To her surprise, a family of deer stood just beyond the tree line, their graceful silhouettes framed by the glowing sunset. They seemed to pause for a moment as if acknowledging her presence, before gracefully bounding away into the fading light. Clara's heart swelled with joy. It felt like a sign that she was not just in her grandmother's cottage, but also part of the very fabric of this serene landscape. Feeling invigorated by the encounter, she turned her attention back to the kitchen. The scent of baking cookies soon filled the air, wrapping around her like a nostalgic blanket. As she waited, she decided to explore further, feeling an urge to delve into the attic, a place she had always found mysterious as a child. Climbing the creaky stairs, Clara was greeted by a musty aroma and the dim light filtering through the small attic window. Dust motes danced in the golden beams, and boxes piled high reached for the slanted roof. With a sense of purpose, she began to sift through the treasures of her grandmother's life. Old photo albums, brittle and yellowing with age, lay alongside handcrafted quilts and trinkets from a time-long past. As Clara flipped through the albums, a sense of wonder enveloped her. Each photograph captured moments of joy, birthdays, picnics in the glade, and gatherings with friends and family. She lingered on one particular image, a candid shot of her grandmother laughing, her eyes sparkling with a youthful mischief. In that moment, Clara felt a profound connection, as if her grandmother was reaching out from the past, urging her to embrace the present fully. Tucked between the pages of the album, she discovered a handwritten letter, dated decades ago. Clara's heart raced as she unfolded it, revealing a message filled with wisdom and love. It spoke of dreams, of the importance of following one's heart, and a reminder that life is a tapestry woven with both joy and sorrow. The words resonated deeply, igniting a desire in Clara to not only reconnect with her grandmother's spirit, but also to rediscover her own. With newfound determination, she descended the attic stairs, the letter clutched tightly in her hand. As the cookies finished baking, she resolved to take the lessons from her grandmother's life and apply them to her own. Clara could feel the magic of the cottage surrounding her, an enchanting blend of love, memory, and the promise of new beginnings. Clara sat at the kitchen table, the warm glow of the late afternoon sun filtering through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the worn tabletop. The scent of freshly baked cookies still hung in the air, mingling with the earthy aromas of the garden outside. She glanced at the tin box, its lid slightly ajar as if inviting her to explore further. Each recipe card was a window into her grandmother's world, a world filled with love, laughter, and the art of nourishing those around her. With renewed determination, Clara picked up a few more cards, eager to try her hand at the traditional dishes that had once graced the family table. She stumbled upon one titled Sunday Roast, which brought forth vivid memories of family gatherings steeped in warmth and cheer. The thought of cooking for herself, of creating those same moments of joy, filled her with excitement and a touch of trepidation. Later that evening, with the sun dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Clara decided to take a walk through the fields. As she stepped outside, the cool breeze wrapped around her like a soft embrace, whispering secrets from the past. The landscape was alive, the wildflowers dancing gently to the rhythm of the wind, and the willows swayed gracefully, their branches swishing like old friends greeting her. Clara ambled along the well-trodden path, her mind wandering to all the stories her grandmother had shared about the land. She remembered tales of hidden treasures, like the old oak tree that stood sentinel at the edge of the woods, rumored to be a meeting place for woodland creatures. Intrigued, Clara decided to seek it out, feeling a tug of adventure in her heart. Upon reaching the oak, she marveled at its grandeur, the gnarled bark telling stories of resilience and time. As she bent down to inspect the base of the tree, something caught her eye, a glimmering object half buried in the earth. With a mixture of curiosity and excitement, she began to dig, her fingers brushing against something cool and metallic. After a few moments, she unearthed a small rusted locket. The intricate design was faded, but Clara could still make out the shape of two intertwined hearts. Her heart raced as she opened it to find a tiny, faded photograph of a young couple, her grandmother and a man she had never seen before. Clara's mind buzzed with questions. Who was he? What was their story? As night enveloped the cottage, Clara returned indoors, the locket clutched tightly in her hand. She placed it on the table next to the recipes, feeling a sense of connection to her grandmother that transcended time. Inspired, she decided that the next meal she would prepare would not only be a tribute to her grandmother, but also a celebration of the mysteries that life held. Mysteries waiting to be uncovered, just like the locket. With a plan forming in her mind, Clara set to work, determined to recreate the Sunday roast from the recipe card. As she chopped vegetables and seasoned the meat, she felt her grandmother's spirit guiding her, filling the kitchen with laughter and love. The sound of sizzling and the aroma of herbs enveloped her like a warm hug, reminding her that she was never truly alone. As the meal simmered, Clara took a moment to reflect on her journey. The cottage, once a place of mere memories, was transforming into a canvas for her future. With each bite of the roast, she hoped to taste the legacy of resilience and passion her grandmother had imparted. Tonight, she would not only savor the flavors of her childhood, but also forge new memories, one recipe at a time, one story at a time. And as she sat down to eat, the locket gleamed softly in the candlelight, a promise of the adventures yet to unfold. Clara stood in the cozy kitchen, the rich aroma of rosemary and garlic filling the air as she basted the roast. The golden brown skin glistened under the warm light, and for a moment she closed her eyes, letting the scents transport her back to childhood Sundays spent in her grandmother's embrace. The laughter, the clinking of silverware, and the soft melodies of old jazz records playing in the background all seemed to swirl around her like a comforting embrace. As she arranged the vegetables around the roast, Clara's mind wandered back to the locket she had found beneath the oak tree. Who was the man in the photograph? Had he been a part of her grandmother's life in a way she had never known? The mystery tugged at her heart, igniting a flame of curiosity. She felt a deep yearning to uncover the stories that lay hidden beneath the surface of her family's history, threads of connection that could weave a richer tapestry of her own identity. With the roast nestled in the oven, Clara decided to turn her attention back to the attic. The letter from her grandmother had sparked something within her, a determination to not only recreate recipes, but to uncover the stories and experiences that shaped her family. She grabbed a flashlight, its beam illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air as she climbed the wooden steps. In the attic, the atmosphere was thick with memories. Clara sifted through boxes, each one a fragile time capsule of the past. She unearthed faded quilts, small trinkets, and an antique typewriter, reminiscent of the days when her grandmother had poured her heart into writing letters and stories. Clara felt a surge of inspiration. Perhaps her journey could be more than just cooking. It could also be a journey of storytelling. As she opened another box, Clara's fingers brushed against the textured cover of an old scrapbook. With bated breath, she flipped it open, revealing a treasure trove of black and white photographs, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes. The first page was adorned with a picture of her grandmother, young and vibrant, standing beside the same man from the locket, both of them beaming with joy. Her heart raced. This was the key to unlocking the mystery. Clara spent the next several hours lost in the pages of the scrapbook, piecing together snippets of her grandmother's life. There were letters exchanged during wartime, stories of resilience, and an entire section dedicated to culinary adventures, a testament to her grandmother's passion for food that had been passed down through generations. The final entry caught Clara's eye. It was a recipe for a special dish, one that her grandmother had described as a family favorite, but had never made it into the tin box. With renewed energy, Clara made her way back to the kitchen. She set to work, painstakingly translating her grandmother's handwritten notes into a modern-day recipe. It felt as if she were channeling her grandmother's spirit, each chop of the knife and stir of the pot a nod to the legacy that had shaped her family. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow through the window, Clara felt a profound sense of connection to her roots, as if the past and present were merging into one. Before she knew it, the dish was complete, a vibrant medley of flavors that embodied the love and warmth of her grandmother's kitchen. Clara plated the food beautifully, her heart swelling with pride. Tonight she would not only honor her grandmother through her cooking, but also share the stories that had been hidden for so long. As she set the table, she reflected on the journey that had led her here. This was more than just a meal. It was a celebration of family and heritage. Clara smiled at the thought of her grandmother watching over her, proud and smiling as she prepared to savor the flavors of the past while creating new memories for the future. Clara stood in the kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window, casting a golden hue across the countertops. The air was thick with the aroma of simmering tomatoes and fragrant basil as she stirred a bubbling pot of marinara sauce, the very same her grandmother had once crafted on lazy Sunday afternoons. Each stir brought vivid memories of laughter and flour-covered hands, of stories shared while waiting for the sauce to reach perfection. As she chopped fresh herbs, her mind wandered to the locket and the enigmatic man whose face had lingered in her thoughts. Who was he? The questions hovered like the steam rising from the pot. Clara set down her knife, a sudden determination igniting within her. Perhaps uncovering the mystery of the man in the photograph could offer her a new layer of understanding about her grandmother's life. That evening, after a dinner filled with the vibrant flavors of her creation, Clara settled down with the scrapbook. The pages whispered secrets of a time long past, and she felt a kinship with the woman who had poured her heart into each recipe. As she flipped through the brittle pages, Clara's fingers paused at an entry dated nearly 50 years ago. It spoke of a summer fair where her grandmother had met someone special, a man with a passion for cooking and a twinkle in his eye. Intrigued, Clara noticed a small pressed flower tucked between the pages. Carefully extracting it, she found a note in her grandmother's handwriting. For Arthur, my summer love, may our flavors forever intertwine. The name sent a shiver down her spine. Arthur. Could this be the man from the photograph? Determined to delve deeper, Clara resolved to revisit the attic the next day. She rummaged through boxes filled with old linens and dusty keepsakes until she unearthed an old trunk, its leather cracked with age. Inside, a treasure trove awaited. Letters tied with faded ribbon, a collection of postcards, and a handwritten cookbook that appeared to belong to Arthur. Each piece bore witness to a love story flavored with spices and sweetness, painting a picture of culinary adventures spent together. Hours slipped by as Clara lost herself in the pages. Arthur had traveled, collecting recipes from far-off lands and sharing them with her grandmother. As she read, she could almost hear their laughter echoing through the years, the way they must have danced around the kitchen as they cooked side by side. With each letter and postcard, Clara's heart swelled with a sense of belonging, as if she were piecing together a puzzle that had long remained incomplete. But what had happened to Arthur? Why was he not part of her grandmother's later life? The questions ignited a fire in Clara's spirit, urging her to seek answers. That weekend, Clara decided to visit the local historical society, hoping they might have more information about Arthur and his connection to her grandmother. The quaint building was filled with artifacts and stories from the past, a treasure trove of local history. As she spoke with the curator, Clara felt a new chapter of her journey unfolding. "Do you have any records of residents from the early 1970s?" she asked, her fingers nervously tapping the edge of the table. "I'm looking for someone named Arthur." The curator's eyes lit up with recognition. "Oh yes, I believe we have some information. He was quite the character in this town. A chef, you say? You might be interested in this." With that, the curator handed Clara a faded newspaper clipping featuring a young man standing proudly in front of a restaurant, a twinkle in his eye that mirrored the man in the locket. Clara's heart raced as she gazed at the article, and she suddenly felt the threads of her family's story weaving together. She was no longer just a young woman cooking to honor her grandmother. She was a detective of her own lineage, ready to uncover the secrets that would lead her further down the path of her family's history. And with each new discovery, she felt her connection to her roots deepen, as if the flavors of the past were guiding her into a flavor-filled future. Clara stood in her kitchen, flour dusting the countertop like a fine snowfall, as she prepared to bake her grandmother's famous apple pie. The warm scent of cinnamon filled the air, mingling with memories of her grandmother humming softly, guiding Clara through the intricate dance of cooking. She glanced at the locket lying open beside her, the image of Arthur's smiling face still evoking a rush of curiosity and longing. As she sliced the apples, their crispness echoed in the silence of the room, and Clara's thoughts drifted to the newspaper clipping she had found at the Historical Society. Arthur, with his keen culinary skills, had been celebrated in the local community for his inventive recipes and vibrant personality. They had shared summers filled with laughter and experimentation in the kitchen, and Clara wondered how her grandmother had felt about leaving him behind. With each layer of pastry she meticulously folded, Clara contemplated the next steps in her journey. Perhaps it was time to venture beyond the dusty confines of her attic and the familiar warmth of her kitchen. She decided to visit the local farmers' market, a place where the community gathered, where stories mingled with the sense of fresh produce and baked goods. Maybe there she could find someone who knew more about Arthur, or better yet, someone who had crossed paths with her grandmother during those vibrant summer days. Later that afternoon she set out, her heart a mix of excitement and trepidation. The farmer's market was alive with color and sound. Stalls overflowed with vibrant fruits and vegetables, while vendors called out, inviting customers to sample their wares. Clara wandered through the aisles, her senses awakening to the rhythm of the bustling crowd. She sampled a juicy peach and exchanged a few friendly words with a vendor selling handcrafted jams, but her mind remained fixed on her quest. As she approached a stall adorned with wildflowers, she noticed an elderly woman arranging bunches of herbs. Clara felt an inexplicable pull toward her, as though destiny had woven their paths together. The woman looked up, and a spark of recognition flickered in her eyes. "You look just like her," she said, her voice warm yet laced with nostalgia. "Excuse me," Clara replied, taken aback. "Your grandmother, my dear. I knew her well. We used to cook together at the community center during the summers." The woman's eyes glimmered with a mixture of joy and sorrow. Her name was Rose, and she had a heart as big as her passion for food. Clara's heart raced. "I found a locket with a photograph of a man named Arthur. Do you remember him?" The woman's face softened, and her hands paused in their task. "Oh, Arthur. He was a charmer, always experimenting with new dishes." They were quite the pair, Rose and Arthur. He brought out the best in her, not just in the kitchen, but in life itself. The conversation flowed like a gentle stream, and with each word, Clara felt the tapestry of her grandmother's life come alive. The woman, whose name Clara learned was Martha, began recounting tales of summer picnics by the lake, where Rose and Arthur would prepare feasts that brought the whole community together. Clara listened intently, absorbing every detail, the flavors, the laughter, the sense of belonging that enveloped her grandmother. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Clara's mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps she could recreate one of those summer feasts, bring together not just the recipes, but the very essence of her grandmother's spirit. "Would you like to join me?" Clara asked impulsively, her heart swelling with hope. "I want to honor Rose and Arthur, and I could use a partner in the kitchen." Martha's eyes sparkled with surprise and delight. "Oh, I would love that, dear. It would be like reliving those beautiful summers again." As they exchanged contact information, Clara felt a surge of warmth envelop her, as if the past and present were intertwining. With each new connection, she was one step closer to uncovering the layers of her family history, ready to embrace the love and legacy woven into the very fabric of her cooking. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a deeper journey, one that would take her not just through recipes and stories, but into the heart of her grandmother's cherished memories, and perhaps into the arms of an unexpected friendship. Clara stood in her cozy kitchen, the sun filtering through the window and casting a golden hue over the scattered ingredients that covered the countertop. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh basil and tomatoes from the garden outside, and she felt a flutter of excitement as she prepared for the upcoming dinner with Martha. Their conversation at the farmer's market had ignited a fire within Clara. It was as if the very spirit of her grandmother was guiding her hands. She recalled Martha's laughter as she spoke of the summer feasts that were a staple of Rose and Arthur's gatherings. They would cook for hours, filling the air with aromas that danced like music, Martha had said, her eyes twinkling with nostalgia. Clara could envision the long table under the oak tree, adorned with colorful dishes and surrounded by friends and family, each bite a celebration of life and love. Determined to recreate one of those unforgettable meals, Clara had chosen a classic dish, pasta primavera, infused with the vibrant colors of the season's freshest vegetables. As she chopped bell peppers, zucchini, and cherry tomatoes, she imagined her grandmother's hands guiding her, teaching her the secrets behind each ingredient. Clara's heart swelled with warmth at the thought of Rose sharing her culinary wisdom, and she could almost hear her voice saying, "Cooking is like love. It should be entered into with abandon, or not at all." With the pasta simmering and the vegetables sautéing, Clara decided it was time to invite Martha over. She reached for her phone, hesitating for just a moment before sending a text. "Hi, Martha. I'm making pasta primavera inspired by Grandma Rose and Arthur's summer feasts. Would you like to join me for dinner?" While waiting for Martha's reply, Clara took a moment to reflect on the bond that was blossoming between them. She realized that this was more than just a meal. It was a bridge between generations, a way to honor her grandmother's memory while creating new ones with Martha. She felt a sense of purpose in her quest, not just to uncover the story of Rose and Arthur, but to weave their legacy into the fabric of her own life. Moments later, her phone buzzed with an enthusiastic response. "I would be delighted. I'll bring some homemade garlic bread and a bottle of wine that Arthur loved." Clara's heart raced with anticipation. As she continued to prepare, she couldn't help but think about the mysterious note she had found addressed to Arthur, hidden within the pages of the scrapbook. What had happened between them? Why had he faded from Rose's life? These questions lingered in her mind, pushing her to dig deeper. Just as she was plating the pasta, a soft knock echoed from the front door. Clara wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened the door to reveal Martha, holding a wicker basket overflowing with golden brown garlic bread and a bottle of deep red wine. "Ah, the aroma already tells me this will be a feast to remember," Martha exclaimed, stepping inside and inhaling deeply. "It smells just like Rose's kitchen in the summer." As they settled at the small dining table, Clara felt a sense of camaraderie with Martha. They shared stories of Rose, each memory a thread that wove them closer together. Martha recalled the time Rose had attempted to bake a cake for Arthur's birthday, only for it to collapse spectacularly. "But she just laughed and turned it into a trifle instead," she chuckled. That was the spirit of Rose, always finding joy in the little mishaps. With each story, Clara felt her grandmother come alive, a luminous presence that filled the room. They toasted to Rose, their glasses clinking with a soft chime, and Clara made a silent vow to continue this journey, to dig deeper into her grandmother's past, and to unravel the love story that had shaped so much of the woman she adored. As the evening wore on, laughter and warmth enveloped them, and Clara couldn't shake the feeling that, as she embraced the past, she was also crafting her own future, a future rich with the flavors of love, family, and the timeless art of cooking. The mysteries of her grandmother's life awaited her, and Clara was ready to dive into them, one recipe at a time. Clara stirred the bubbling pot of sauce, the rich aroma enveloping the kitchen, reminiscent of her grandmother's spirited gatherings. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting golden glimmers on the wooden table, now adorned with an array of colorful vegetables Martha had handpicked from the market. As she chopped fresh basil, memories of her grandmother's tales echoed in her mind. Clara could almost hear Rose's laughter blending with the clinking of utensils and the soft melodies of her favorite records crackling in the background. "Your grandmother had a way of turning the simplest meal into a celebration," Martha said, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. She carefully peeled back the layers of an heirloom tomato, revealing the vibrant red flesh inside. "I remember one summer we had an unexpected guest, a traveling chef named Arthur. He had a flair for the dramatic, always talking about the culinary secrets of far-off lands." Clara's interest piqued at the mention of Arthur. "What was he like?" Did he cook with Rose often? She asked, leaning closer, eager to absorb every detail. Martha chuckled, her eyes twinkling with nostalgia. Oh, he was quite the character. He brought spices from all over the world and introduced Rose to flavors she had never imagined. They would spend hours experimenting in the kitchen, laughing as they tried to outdo each other's creations. One time, Arthur made a spicy chili that left everyone gasping for water, but Rose countered with a sweet, cooling dessert that won them all over in the end. As Martha shared these stories, Clara felt a spark of inspiration ignite within her. What if I try to recreate one of their dishes for the dinner? Something that captures the essence of both of them, she suggested, her excitement bubbling over like the sauce on the stove. That would be wonderful, Martha exclaimed, her face lighting up. How about we try making Rose's famous lavender-infused panna cotta? It was Arthur who convinced her to experiment with flavors, and that dessert became a staple at every summer gathering. Clara's heart raced at the thought. Yes. That sounds perfect. She grabbed a notepad and began jotting down ingredients, her mind racing with ideas. We can serve it with fresh berries from the market, maybe even some mint to garnish. As they worked side by side in the warm kitchen, chopping, stirring, and laughing, Clara felt a deeper connection to her grandmother and a burgeoning curiosity about Arthur. Martha, do you think Arthur is still around? I'd love to hear more about him. Maybe find out if he has any of Rose's old recipes, she pondered aloud, her mind wandering to the possibilities. Martha paused, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. You know, I've lost touch with him over the years, but I believe he still lives in town. He opened a small bistro a while back, focused on fusion cuisine. I could show you where it is. I bet he would love to talk about Rose. Clara's heart leaped. The idea of meeting someone who shared a piece of her grandmother's history filled her with anticipation. That would be amazing. I'd love to hear his stories and maybe even gather more inspiration for the dinner. Martha nodded. Let's finish up here, and I'll take you there after we've cooked our feast. It's time you uncovered the secrets of your grandmother's culinary legacy. With renewed energy, Clara and Martha dove back into their preparations. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Clara felt a sense of peace wash over her. She was not just preparing a meal. She was weaving together the threads of her family history, one recipe at a time. The anticipation of what lay ahead filled her with joy, and she couldn't wait to see how this journey would unfold. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue through the kitchen window, Clara stirred the simmering sauce, its rich aroma filling the room. The vibrant colors of fresh vegetables danced in the pot, each stir a reminder of the laughter that once echoed through these very walls. With Martha by her side, chopping basil and recounting tales of Rose's culinary escapades, Clara felt a rush of warmth envelop her, intertwining with the spirit of her grandmother. Remember the time she mistook salt for sugar in the cake? Martha chuckled, her hands pausing momentarily as she recalled the incident. We were all so excited for dessert, and then surprise. It was like biting into a salted ocean. Clara laughed, her eyes sparkling with delight. I can still see her face, trying to salvage it with whipped cream. Nothing could deter her spirit, could it? No, it never could, Martha replied, her tone softening. That's what made her meals unforgettable. She poured her heart into every dish, imperfections and all. As the pasta boiled, Clara's mind wandered to Arthur. She had admired him from afar at the farmer's market, where he often set up a small booth showcasing his culinary creations. She recalled the way he would engage with patrons, his bright smile infectious as he explained the origins of his ingredients. Was he still the same passionate chef Rose had known? She felt a surge of curiosity to learn more about him, to peel back the layers of his story as she did with the garlic. Do you think he'd be willing to share some of Rose's old recipes? Or maybe teach me a few culinary secrets? Clara asked, her heart racing with the thought of reaching out to him. Martha looked thoughtful, stirring the bowl of freshly chopped vegetables. I think he would love that. You know how much he respected your grandmother. If anyone could bridge that gap between the past and the present, it's you. Determined, Clara decided she would visit Arthur's bistro after dinner. As they plated the pasta primavera, steam curling upward like whispers of the past, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. This dinner was not just about honoring Rose, it was about forging her own path in the culinary world. As they sat down at the table, Martha poured a glass of wine, and Clara felt a surge of gratitude. To Rose, she toasted, raising her glass. To her legacy and the memories we share. To Rose, Martha echoed, her voice thick with emotion. After the initial bites of their creation, Clara leaned back, savoring the flavors that danced on her palate. You know, she said, I want to make this recipe a fixture in my life. I want to not just recreate her dishes, but also capture her spirit in the kitchen. Martha nodded, her eyes shining with understanding. And you will, Clara. You have that same fire. The evening faded into a gentle twilight, and as the last of the pasta was devoured, Clara felt the warmth of the kitchen wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. With each story shared, each laugh exchanged, she realized they were not just reminiscing, they were weaving a new tapestry, one that intertwined the past with the present. Let's go after dinner, Martha suggested suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. I know the way to the bistro. You'll love it. Plus, Arthur's always experimenting with new dishes. I'm sure he'd be thrilled to see you. Clara's heart raced at the thought. Yes, let's go. I'm ready to meet him. With renewed energy, they cleared the table, laughter spilling into the corners of the kitchen as they worked together. The excitement of the bistro visit hung in the air like the delicious scents that lingered from their meal. Clara's mind buzzed with anticipation, not just for the chance to speak with Arthur, but for the stories he might share about Rose and the culinary adventures that awaited her. As they stepped out into the cool evening air, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one steeped in memories, friendship, and the timeless art of cooking. As Clara stirred the simmering pot of rich tomato sauce, she could almost hear her grandmother's laughter echoing through the kitchen. The memories floated like fragrant herbs in the air, entwining with the soft sounds of bubbling sauce and clinking utensils. Martha leaned against the counter, a wistful smile on her face as she watched Clara's every move. Your grandmother had a way of turning the simplest ingredients into something magical, Martha mused, her eyes reflecting the golden afternoon light. I remember the time she made a rustic ratatouille for the neighborhood potluck. It was a hit. She always said, "The secret is in the love you put in it." Clara nodded, her heart swelling with pride and nostalgia. I want to honor her spirit tonight. I want everyone to feel what I felt when she cooked for us. Speaking of honoring traditions, Martha chimed in, have you thought about what you'll say to Arthur? He's the key to unlocking more of Rose's culinary secrets. Clara paused, her wooden spoon hovering above the pot. You're right. I should ask him about the flavors she loved. Maybe even some of the techniques she never shared with us. The thought of meeting Arthur filled her with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. What if he didn't remember her grandmother as vividly as she did? Just then the phone rang, breaking the moment of reflection. Clara wiped her hands on a towel and picked up the receiver, her heart racing with the prospect of unexpected news. "Hello?" she answered, her voice bright but slightly trembling. "Clara, it's Arthur." His voice was warm and familiar, as if no time had passed since their last encounter. Clara felt a rush of joy and disbelief. "I heard you're planning a dinner in honor of your grandmother." "I'd love to help you with it." "Really? You would?" Clara exclaimed, nearly dropping the phone. "That would be amazing. I want to recreate some of her dishes, but I could use your guidance. I can share some of her recipes, but I also have a surprise for you," Arthur replied, his tone teasingly mysterious. "There's a special ingredient you'll need, one that Rose loved to use. It's rare now, but I can help you find it." "Meet me at the bistro tomorrow afternoon?" Clara's mind raced with possibilities. "Yes." "I'll be there." After hanging up, she turned to Martha, who was practically bouncing with excitement. "Did you hear that?" "He wants to help," Clara exclaimed, her face glowing with a mix of disbelief and anticipation. Martha giggled, clapping her hands together. "This is perfect. What do you think the special ingredient is?" "I don't know, but it must be something extraordinary," Clara mused, her thoughts already drifting toward the upcoming dinner. As she returned to the stove, her heart brimmed with hope and determination. She was not just cooking, she was on the brink of reviving her grandmother's legacy, one flavor at a time. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara meticulously prepared her grandmother's favorite dishes, the kitchen alive with the sounds of sizzling and chopping. Each bite she tasted was a step closer to her heritage, a bridge between the past and her aspirations for the future. With every dish, she felt her connection to Rose deepen, as if the spirit of her grandmother was dancing alongside her, guiding her hands and filling the air with love. The scent of rosemary and garlic enveloped her in a warm embrace, igniting a flame of creativity and joy. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, discoveries, and perhaps the magic that comes from blending memories with the present. Clara was ready to embrace it all, one delicious moment at a time. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the kitchen, Clara stirred a bubbling pot of sauce, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The aroma of garlic and tomatoes filled the air, teasing her senses and reminding her of the countless evenings spent in this very space with her grandmother Rose. "Martha, can you believe it?" Clara said, her voice carrying a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Tonight I'll finally get to learn from Arthur. He knew Rose better than anyone in this town. This could be the key to unlocking her secrets." Martha leaned against the counter, a smile playing on her lips as she recalled her own cherished memories of Rose's kitchen. "I remember the way she would laugh when the dough didn't rise. She'd always say that it's not a mistake, just a new recipe waiting to happen," she reminisced, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. "You've got her spirit in you, Clara. Just be yourself and you'll do great." Clara nodded, a wave of determination washing over her. As she added a sprinkle of salt, the doorbell chimed, echoing through the walls like a gentle reminder of her growing anticipation. "That must be Arthur." She wiped her hands on a dish towel and rushed to the door, her heart racing with both excitement and nerves. When she opened the door, Arthur stood there with a warm smile, his arms cradling a basket filled with fresh herbs and vibrant vegetables. "Clara." "It's wonderful to see you," he said, his voice rich with warmth. I brought some ingredients that I think will help us bring your grandmother's dish to life. Thank you so much, Arthur. Please come in, Clara said, stepping aside to let him enter. The moment he crossed the threshold, Clara felt a palpable connection to the past. The kitchen had been a sanctuary for Rose, and now it felt as if her spirit lingered in the very air they breathed. As they gathered around the counter, Clara watched intently as Arthur deftly chopped herbs, sharing stories of Rose's culinary adventures. Did you know she once tried to make a souffle just before a big family gathering? He chuckled, shaking his head. It collapsed spectacularly, but instead of panicking, she transformed it into a pudding and served it with pride. Clara laughed, picturing her grandmother's playful spirit. That sounds just like her, always turning every misstep into something beautiful. With every story shared and every ingredient prepared, Clara felt more connected not only to her grandmother, but to the legacy she was striving to uphold. As they began to cook, Arthur revealed the special ingredient he had promised, a small bottle of fragrant olive oil infused with rosemary, one that Rose had always kept on hand. This is the secret weapon, he said, pouring a few drops into the bubbling sauce. It was her favorite finishing touch, a way to elevate every dish. With each taste and adjustment, Clara felt the weight of Rose's legacy transform into a living, breathing experience, one that was now shared with Arthur. The kitchen thrummed with energy, and the evening unfolded like a well-loved recipe, layered with flavor, rich with history, and laced with love. Clara, I want you to make this dish your own, Arthur said, his voice steady and encouraging. Think about what you want to express through your cooking. What flavors remind you of her? What stories do you want to tell? Clara paused, the question hanging in the air like the fragrant steam rising from the pot. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her grandmother's guidance and wisdom. I think I want to add a hint of lemon zest. Rose always loved a touch of brightness in her dishes. It reminds me of summer afternoons spent in her garden. Arthur nodded appreciatively. Perfect. Let's do it. As Clara zested the lemon, she felt a surge of inspiration. With each turn of the grater, she was not just recreating a dish, she was forging a new path, one that honored her grandmother while simultaneously embracing her own culinary identity. The kitchen, filled with the laughter and the clinking of pots, had transformed into a sacred space where the past and present melded seamlessly. With the dish nearly complete, Clara and Arthur exchanged glances, a shared understanding passing between them. Let's make a toast, Arthur suggested, pulling out 2 glasses from Clara's cupboard. To Rose and to the love she instilled in every meal. Clara raised her glass, her heart swelling with gratitude. To Rose, she echoed, the words resonating deep within her. And as they clinked their glasses together, Clara knew that this evening would be a turning point, not just in her culinary journey, but in her life, as she continued to explore the flavors of her heritage, one dish at a time. As the evening progressed, the kitchen was alive with laughter and the rhythmic clinking of pots and pans. The sunlight waned, casting a golden hue across the countertops where Clara and Arthur had laid out a veritable feast inspired by Rose's treasured recipes. The air was thick with the mingling scents of garlic, herbs, and the sweet hint of caramelizing onions, a symphony of aromas that felt like a warm embrace from Clara's childhood. Rose always believed that cooking was as much about the heart as it was about the ingredients, Arthur said, stirring a bubbling pot of rich tomato sauce. His eyes twinkled with the kind of joy that comes from sharing stories of those who have left an indelible mark on our lives. She taught me that every dish tells a story and each ingredient has its own voice. Clara paused, leaning against the counter, a wooden spoon resting in her hand. "What was your favorite dish of hers?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Arthur chuckled softly, recalling the moments spent in Rose's kitchen. "It has to be her lasagna. It was a labor of love, layered with memories, each sheet of pasta made by hand, and the cheese. Oh, she would add a hint of nutmeg, just enough to surprise your palate. She said it was the secret to making it unforgettable." As Clara listened, she felt a rush of inspiration wash over her. "Nutmeg," she exclaimed, her mind racing with possibilities. "What if I combine that with the lemon zest I used earlier?" A twist on tradition. Arthur nodded, impressed by her inventive spirit. "That's the beauty of cooking, Clara. It's about evolution, about making it your own while respecting the roots." With renewed energy, Clara dove back into the cooking, her hands moving deftly as she prepared layers of pasta and sauce, each step imbued with purpose. Martha, who had been slicing fresh basil, chimed in with a mischievous grin. "You know, Rose would always say that the best meals are those shared with the loved ones. Have you thought about inviting more people for dinner?" Clara paused, the idea swirling in her mind like the steam rising from the pots. "You're right. This dinner isn't just for me. It's for everyone who loved her. We could invite the neighbors, the ones she used to cook for. They would love to share in this memory." Arthur's face lit up. "That's a wonderful idea. Food has a way of bringing people together, of weaving connections. Let's do it." Determined, Clara set about sending messages to those who lived nearby, her heart swelling with excitement at the thought of gathering a community around the table, united by a shared love for Rose. As she finished assembling the lasagna, she could already envision the faces of friends and neighbors, laughter echoing against the walls of her kitchen, and stories being exchanged, each bite a tribute to the legacy that Rose had created. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara set the table with mismatched dishes, a nod to her grandmother's eclectic taste. Candles flickered to life, casting a warm glow that mirrored the warmth in her heart. Arthur and Martha joined her, setting down the final dishes in a dazzling array. "Are you ready?" Arthur asked, his voice laced with anticipation. Clara took a deep breath, embracing the moment. "More than ever. This is just the beginning." The doorbell rang, a ripple of excitement coursing through them. Clara exchanged a glance with Martha, their smiles wide with the promise of shared memories. She opened the door to find a familiar face, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly neighbor with a smile that sparkled like the stars. "Clara, dear, I heard you were cooking something special. I brought over some of Rose's favorite wine. Come in, Mrs. Thompson. You're just in time for dinner," Clara exclaimed, her heart swelling with joy. As more guests arrived, the kitchen transformed into a lively haven, a place where laughter mingled with the rich tapestry of Rose's culinary legacy. Each story shared carried the essence of Rose's spirit. Each dish served was a celebration of love, and Clara felt her grandmother's presence enveloping her like a warm embrace. Tonight was not just a dinner. It was a heartfelt reunion, a testament to the enduring power of family, food, and the memories that bind us all together. And as Clara looked around at the gathering of familiar faces, she knew that Rose's legacy would continue to thrive in every bite, every laugh, and every shared moment. As the golden hues of the evening sun streamed through the kitchen window, Clara felt a swell of warmth in her heart. The scent of sautéing onions mingled with the fragrant spices, wrapping the room in a cozy embrace. Arthur had just finished chopping fresh herbs, their vibrant green flecks contrasting beautifully against the wooden cutting board. "Remember when Rose used to say that laughter is the best seasoning?" he said, tossing a handful of parsley into the bubbling pot. Clara chuckled softly, picturing her grandmother's twinkling eyes and infectious smile. "She always had a way of making the simplest moments feel special," Clara replied, her voice laced with fondness. "Like when she would catch us sneaking bites of dough before it even made it to the oven." Just then, Martha burst through the door with a basket overflowing with colorful vegetables, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "I thought we could use some fresh bell peppers and zucchini for the side dish. And I brought a few bottles of wine to share with everyone tonight." "Perfect timing," Clara exclaimed, eagerly helping Martha unload the basket. They began to chop and prepare the vibrant vegetables, their rhythmic movements creating a delightful symphony of sounds. Clinking knives, sizzling pans, and occasional bursts of laughter. As they worked, Clara's mind wandered to the neighbors she had invited. She hoped they would appreciate the meal and the stories that came with it. They were a diverse group, each with their own backgrounds and traditions, yet Clara believed that food had a unique way of bridging gaps and fostering connection. With the kitchen now bustling, Arthur presented his latest idea. "How about we set up a little dessert station after dinner? We could make a simple berry tart topped with whipped cream." "Rose had a killer recipe for that." A spark ignited in Clara's eyes. "Yes." "That would be a lovely way to end the evening. We could even ask everyone to share their own favorite dessert stories, what their family made, or any memorable moments tied to sweets. It would be like a culinary storytelling circle." Martha grinned. "I love that idea. We can create a little space on the table with a tart, some fresh berries, and maybe even a few candles to set the mood." With the preparations in full swing, Clara felt a bubbling excitement rise within her. It was more than just a meal. It was a celebration of culture, memories, and the bonds forged through shared experiences. As they plated the dishes, Clara took a moment to appreciate the scene around her. The warmth of friendship filled the air, and she knew that Rose's spirit was there with them, guiding her hands and whispering encouragement. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the kitchen, Clara looked out the window and saw the first few neighbors arriving. She took a deep breath, feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. Tonight was not just about honoring her grandmother's recipes. It was about weaving her own story into the fabric of the community, creating new memories that would be cherished for years to come. With a final flourish, Clara set the table, each place adorned with care, and whispered a silent thank you to Rose. The laughter and chatter of the gathering would soon fill the air, and she couldn't wait to see how the evening would unfold. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue through the kitchen window, Clara glanced at the clock, a mix of excitement and anxiety bubbling within her. The aromas of simmering marinara and freshly grated parmesan filled the air, making her nostalgic for the meals her grandmother had prepared. Clara's hands moved deftly as she rolled out the pasta dough, aware of Arthur's watchful gaze. "Remember when Rose taught us how to make pasta from scratch?" Arthur chuckled, his eyes twinkling with the memory. "We were so convinced we would end up with a perfect lasagna, but I think we ended up with a flour-covered kitchen instead." Clara laughed, the sound bright and light. And she just laughed with us. I can still hear her saying, "Cooking is an adventure, not a science." Just then, Martha entered the kitchen, her arms loaded with fresh basil and ripe tomatoes from her own garden. "I thought these might add a nice touch to the salad," she said, grinning as she set the ingredients down on the countertop. Clara smiled at the vibrant colors, the way the basil's rich green contrasted with the deep red of the tomatoes. Perfect timing, as always, Clara replied, grateful for Martha's enthusiasm. She knew her friend's contributions would make the evening even more special. As they prepared the meal, the kitchen bubbles with chatter. Martha recounted tales of her own culinary mishaps, like the time she accidentally mistook salt for sugar in a pie, resulting in a dessert that no one could bear to eat. Clara and Arthur erupted into laughter, their voices mingling with the sizzling sounds of cooking. A knock at the door interrupted their revelry. Clara wiped her hands on her apron and opened it to reveal Mrs. Thompson, the elderly neighbor who lived 2 doors down. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity and warmth, and Clara could tell she was eager to join the festivities. "Oh, I hope I'm not too late," Thompson exclaimed, holding a platter of her famous garlic bread. "I couldn't resist bringing a little something to share." "Not at all." "You're just in time," Clara said, ushering her inside. The kitchen seemed to grow even cozier with the addition of another friend, each person contributing not just food but stories and laughter. The conversation flowed seamlessly as they cooked, recalling Rose's infectious spirit and her ability to bring the community together. Arthur suggested they share one of Rose's favorite sayings, "Food is love, served on a plate." Everyone nodded in agreement, a shared understanding of the truth behind those words. As they set the table, Clara felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She looked around at her friends, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of the overhead lights. This gathering was not just about food, it was a celebration of connections, old and new, past and present. Just as they finished arranging the last of the table settings, the doorbell rang again. Clara exchanged a glance with Martha, who raised her eyebrows in surprise. "I didn't expect so many guests." With a sense of anticipation, Clara opened the door to find a small group of neighbors, each one holding a dish. "We heard about the gathering and thought we'd join. We brought a few things to contribute," said Ben, a friendly face from across the street. "Of course. The more the merrier," Clara exclaimed, her heart swelling with joy. As they all filed inside, the kitchen buzzed with even more energy. The spirit of Rose seemed to fill the room, wrapping everyone in a warm embrace. As the dishes were passed around, Clara took a moment to step back and watch. Laughter echoed, stories were exchanged, and the once quiet kitchen was now alive with the sounds of community. A feeling of belonging enveloped her, one that made her realize that through the act of cooking, they were not just honoring a memory, they were creating new ones. With the meal finally ready, Clara called everyone to the table. "Let's raise a glass to Rose," she said, holding her own up high. "To her love, her recipes, and the way she taught us that food isn't just about nourishment, it's about bringing people together." And as glasses clinked and echoed with laughter, Clara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was what her grandmother had always wanted, a kitchen filled with love, laughter, and the joy of community, just as it should be. As the gathering buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses, Clara glanced around her kitchen, now a tapestry of vibrant dishes and smiling faces. The aroma of simmering sauces mingled with the sweet scent of freshly baked bread, wrapping the space in a comforting embrace. Each guest was a thread in the fabric of her grandmother's legacy, and Clara felt a swell of gratitude for the community that had come together to honor Rose. "Clara, you should try the garlic bread Mrs. Thompson made," Martha exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's a family recipe, and I can assure you it's to die for." Thompson beamed at the compliment, her cheeks a rosy shade of warmth that matched the flickering candlelight. "Oh dear, it's nothing special. Just a little butter, some garlic, and a sprinkle of love," she replied modestly, brushing off the praise. Just then Ben, with his usual jovial demeanor, entered the kitchen carrying a giant pot. "You all are in for a treat," he announced, setting the pot on the counter with a thud. "My mother's famous chicken stew. It's been simmering all day." The lid lifted, releasing a fragrant cloud that danced through the room, making everyone lean in closer. "Perfect timing, Ben," Clara smiled, her heart swelling with appreciation. "Everyone's contributions are making this meal truly special." As the guests gathered around, Clara felt the energy of the room shift. They were no longer just neighbors. They were storytellers, each with a piece of Rose's legacy to share. "How about we set up our dessert station now?" Clara suggested, sensing the perfect opportunity to delve deeper into the memories tied to the food they had brought. Arthur nodded enthusiastically. "I'll help you set it up. We can use Grandma's old cake stand and her recipe box," he said, leading Clara to a corner of the kitchen where the dusty box sat, a treasure trove of handwritten recipes and notes. Clara opened the box, the faint scent of vanilla wafting up like a whisper from the past. As she sorted through the delicate cards, she stumbled upon a faded note penned in her grandmother's elegant handwriting. "Life is too short not to celebrate the small moments with dessert," Clara read aloud, her voice thick with the nostalgia. Laughter erupted around the room as everyone nodded in agreement, knowing the truth behind those words. With the dessert station set up, Clara placed an assortment of ingredients on the counter: flour, sugar, chocolate chips, and fresh fruit. "Feel free to mix and match. Share your own sweet stories," she invited, watching as guests began to create their own concoctions. Mrs. Thompson, who had a knack for whipping up delicious pastries, immediately took charge. "How about a berry compote for those who want to drizzle something sweet over their creations?" she suggested, rallying the others to join in. Martha, not one to be left out, chimed in, "And I've brought some homemade whipped cream." You can't forget that. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and soon everyone was bustling about, laughing and sharing tales of their own kitchens and the memories tied to each dish. As Clara watched her friends and neighbors come together, she felt a warmth that radiated deeper than the oven's glow. This was more than just a meal. It was a living tribute to Rose, a celebration of love and community that transcended loss. The evening wore on, and Clara couldn't help but feel that her grandmother was right there with them, her spirit woven into the very fabric of the gathering. As laughter filled the air and stories danced around the table, Clara knew that Rose's legacy was not only alive in the recipes, but also in the connections they were forging anew. "Let's raise our glasses," Clara called, her voice ringing out like a bell. "To Grandma Rose, who taught us that food is love, and to all of us who keep that love alive." Glasses clinked, smiles broadened, and Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. The evening was just beginning, and the sweetest stories were yet to unfold. As the laughter from the kitchen echoed into the living room, Clara felt a swell of gratitude. She looked around at her friends, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of string lights that draped across the walls, and she couldn't help but smile. The preparations were almost complete, and the vibrant energy of the gathering reminded her of the countless evenings spent in this very kitchen with Rose. "Hey, Martha, do you remember the time you tried to bake that chocolate cake and accidentally used salt instead of sugar?" Arthur chuckled, stirring the pot of custard on the stove. The aroma of vanilla wafted through the air, mingling with the scent of roasting vegetables. Oh, don't remind me. I swear the cake could have been used as a weapon. Martha laughed, her hands busy arranging a colorful platter of fresh fruit, each piece a tribute to the bounty of the season. But we learned, didn't we? Cooking is all about trial and error, and a little bit of creativity. Just then the doorbell chimed, cutting through the joyful banter. Clara rushed to the door and swung it open, revealing a familiar face that brought a wave of nostalgia with her presence. It was Eleanor, an old family friend and one of Rose's closest companions. Her silver hair glistened under the ambient light, and her eyes sparkled with warmth. "Eleanor, you made it," Clara exclaimed, pulling her into a heartfelt embrace. "Oh, sweetheart, I wouldn't miss this for the world. Rose was the glue that held so many of us together," Eleanor replied, her voice tinged with emotion. In her hands she held a beautifully woven basket filled with homemade pastries, Rose's favorite almond tarts. The moment the basket hit the table, a collective swoon of delight echoed through the kitchen. Martha rushed over, eyes wide with excitement. Oh, those tarts. I can still remember Rose's laugh as she taught me how to make them. They were a disaster the first time, but she turned it into a sweet memory. Why don't we each share our favorite memory of Rose while we prepare our desserts? Clara suggested, her heart brimming with anticipation. It would be like a little tribute to her spirit. As they gathered around the kitchen island, each friend took turns sharing their cherished memories. Ben spoke of the summer picnics at the lake, where Rose would pack her famous potato salad, always adding just a pinch of extra love. Mrs. Thompson remembered the time Rose had taught her to make her first loaf of bread, resulting in a kitchen filled with flour and laughter. Clara listened intently, soaking in the stories, each one a thread weaving their collective tapestry of memories. With Eleanor's pastries and Arthur's custard ready to go, they began assembling the dessert creations. They worked together in a delightful dance, whipping cream, slicing fruits, and layering tarts with custard. As the final touches were added, Martha, with a gleam in her eye, declared, "Let's put a little of Rose's spirit into each dessert. We can sprinkle some cinnamon, add edible flowers, whatever speaks to us." The room buzzed with creativity as they each personalized their contributions, drawing from the essence of Rose. Clara felt a rush of joy as she realized the gathering had transformed into a tapestry of love, laughter, and shared memories, everything Rose had embodied. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow through the kitchen windows, they arranged the completed desserts on a rustic wooden table. Clara stood back admiring their work, and her heart swelled with pride. "All right, everyone, before we dig in, let's raise our glasses," Clara called, grabbing a bottle of sparkling cider. "To Rose. May her love for cooking and community continue to inspire us." As the glasses clinked together, the room filled with voices echoing a simple yet profound sentiment. To Rose. In that moment, surrounded by friends and filled with the warmth of nostalgia, Clara knew that Rose would always be a part of their lives, a legacy that would endure, not just in recipes, but in the hearts of everyone gathered in her kitchen that night. As the evening wore on, the kitchen swelled with laughter, and the comforting scent of baked goods wafted through the air, mingling with the savory aroma of the chicken stew simmering on the stove. Clara glanced around the room, her heart swelling with gratitude. The soft glow of string lights cast a gentle radiance over her friends, their faces illuminated by the spirit of the occasion. "Who wants to help with the dessert?" Clara called out, her voice ringing with enthusiasm. The idea had sparked in her mind when she found the note in Rose's recipe box, and she felt it was the perfect way to honor her grandmother's belief in the sweetness of life. Eleanor stepped forward, her hands dusted with flour from rolling out pastry dough. "I'll show you how to make Rose's famous raspberry tart," she exclaimed, her eyes twinkling with the same mischief Clara remembered from her childhood. The others rallied around, eager to participate. Martha, with her apron tied snugly around her waist, chimed in, "And I can whip up some chocolate mousse." You know how much Rose loved chocolate? As they gathered around the kitchen island, Clara felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. She could almost hear Rose's laughter echoing alongside theirs, guiding them just as she had done countless times before. "Let's make this more than just a dessert," Ben suggested, stirring the pot with a playful grin. "Let's create a recipe for the future. How about we each add an ingredient that reminds us of Rose?" Clara's heart raced at the idea. "That's perfect. Let's make it a collaboration." Eleanor nodded, her enthusiasm infectious. "I'll add a hint of lemon zest to the tart." It was always a surprise in Rose's desserts, but she said it brightened everything up. Martha reached for a bowl and started cracking eggs. "And I'll add a splash of vanilla," she declared with a smile. Rose believed that a good dessert should always feel like a warm hug. As the group worked in harmony, Ben casually mentioned, "You know, Rose used to tell stories about her own grandmother. She said she learned to cook in this very kitchen." The room fell silent for a moment, each of them lost in their own thoughts about the women who had shaped their lives. "And what was her name?" Clara asked, stirring the mix of butter and sugar, curious about the lineage of love that had been passed down through generations. "Her name was Lila," Eleanor replied softly. "She had a little garden out back, just like you, Clara. Rose would often tell me how Lila's vegetables made their way into every meal inspired. Clara decided to honor that legacy as well." "Let's finish the dessert with a sprinkle of herbs from my garden," she suggested. "Grandma Rose would love that, don't you think?" "Yes, yes," Martha and Ben echoed, excitement lighting up their faces. As they prepared the final touches, laughter erupted when Ben attempted to toss a sprig of mint into the mousse, but it landed instead in Clara's hair. "It's a new look," he teased. The kitchen rang with joyous banter as they mixed, folded, and whisked their way to a delectable creation. They began to share stories more freely now, each anecdote becoming a thread in the tapestry of Rose's life. Clara listened intently as her friends recalled not just the food, but the warmth of Rose's hugs, the sparkle in her eyes when she shared a recipe, and the way she made everyone feel like family. With the sun setting outside, the kitchen transformed into a sanctuary of remembrance. They placed their creations on the table, an eclectic assortment of treats that represented not just a tribute to Rose, but a new memory being forged among friends. As they sat down to enjoy their communal dessert, Clara raised her glass once more. "To Rose, and to the new memories we create together." The clinking of glasses filled the air, sealing the promise of friendship, laughter, and love that would continue long after this night. With every bite of their creations, they were reminded that while Rose may be gone, her spirit would forever linger in the hearts and kitchens of those she loved. As Clara stirred the rich velvety chocolate ganache in a large bowl, she caught sight of Martha, who was meticulously shaping dough for Rose's famous raspberry tarts. The sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting a golden hue over the workspace and illuminating the flour dust that danced in the air. Clara could almost hear her grandmother's laughter mingling with the sounds of clinking utensils and the gentle hum of conversation. "Remember the time Rose insisted on making that enormous cake for the town fair?" Martha chuckled, her hands moving deftly as she recalled the chaos of that day. "She was convinced she could fit a whole garden's worth of flowers on top, and we had to improvise with what we could find in the pantry." Ben chimed in, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "And don't forget how we all ended up covered in icing sugar. I think I wore that cake on my face more than on the plate." He mimed an exaggerated expression of surprise, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Eleanor, with her apron dusted in flour, smiled warmly. That was classic Rose. She believed in making everything bigger and more beautiful, just like her heart. She gently placed down her tray of buttery pastries, each one glistening with a sprinkle of sugar. "I think these pastries are just a reflection of her spirit, simple yet elegant with a touch of sweetness." Clara took a moment to absorb the scene around her, the laughter, the stories, and the shared love for Rose. It felt like each memory was a thread weaving the fabric of their gathering tighter, creating a tapestry of joy woven from loss and remembrance. With renewed energy, she asked, "What if we each share a recipe that reminds us of Rose? Something she taught us, or even just a dish we associate with her?" "That's a brilliant idea," Arthur exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. "I can share the recipe for her chocolate soufflé. I remember the first time she showed me how to fold the egg whites. It was like magic watching it rise." Martha nodded. "And I'll bring the recipe for the lemon meringue pie. She always said it was the perfect balance of sweet and tart, just like life. Plus, it was one of my favorites." Excited murmurs filled the kitchen as each friend began to share their cherished recipes, recalling the moments spent learning from Rose. Clara grabbed a notepad, jotting down every word as if capturing the essence of Rose herself. They reminisced about the lessons she had imparted, not just about cooking, but about love, patience, and the importance of savoring every moment. Suddenly, Clara retrieved a small, worn-out cookbook from the shelf, its pages yellowed with age. It had belonged to Rose, filled with handwritten notes and splattered with ingredients from countless baking sessions. "This was her journal," Clara said, passing it around. "She used to jot down memories and tweaks to her recipes, almost like her own life story." As they flipped through the pages, each friend paused at certain entries, their eyes glistening with nostalgia. They found a recipe for a surprise apple cake, where Rose had written, "The best surprises are the ones shared with friends." Clara's heart swelled as she realized this was more than just a recipe. It was a reminder of the joy that came from unexpected moments, the kind Rose had mastered. With a new spark of inspiration, the group decided to make the surprise apple cake together, each friend contributing an ingredient or a personal memory associated with it. They gathered around the counter, peeling apples and measuring flour, their laughter resonating in the cozy kitchen. As the aroma of baking wafted through the air, Clara felt a profound sense of connection, not just to her grandmother, but to the very essence of community that Rose had fostered. They weren't just baking, they were crafting a tribute, a living legacy of love and resilience, one delicious bite at a time. And as they prepared to share the cake later, Clara knew they were creating new memories that would be cherished for years to come, just like those of Rose. As the aroma of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the kitchen, Clara glanced around at her friends, their faces lit by the golden glow of the string lights. It felt as though Rose herself was smiling down on them, her spirit woven into every corner of the room. "All right, everyone, what's next?" Clara asked, excitement bubbling in her voice. She picked up the cookbook, its pages yellowed and slightly crumpled but still brimming with life. "Let's tackle the cream cheese frosting," Eleanor suggested enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling with the same mischief that Rose often displayed while baking. "I remember how much she loved to whip up that frosting." "It was her secret weapon," Martha chimed in, recalling a moment from years past. "Oh, and she would always sing that silly song while she mixed it." "Something about the whipped cream fairies. I can still hear her voice." The group erupted into laughter, their shared memories lifting the atmosphere even higher. With a collective nod, they gathered around the counter, each taking turns mixing the ingredients. Clara measured out the cream cheese, while Arthur added a splash of vanilla, smiling at the way Martha pretended to conduct an imaginary orchestra. "Okay, who's going to taste test this?" Ben quipped, dramatically raising his hand. "I'm volunteering as tribute." He leaned in, pretending to be very serious, eliciting more giggles from the group. "Let him try." "If it's not good enough for Ben, it's definitely not good enough for Rose," Eleanor teased, and Clara couldn't help but smile, imagining her grandmother's hearty laughter filling the room. As they blended the frosting to the perfect creamy consistency, Clara's heart swelled with gratitude. This was more than just a baking session. It was a celebration of love and friendship, a tangible manifestation of the connections that Rose had nurtured throughout her life. Suddenly, Clara remembered something else from the cookbook. "Wait, there's a section here for memories from the kitchen. I think we should each write down a memory of Rose and tuck it into the cake before it bakes." The group fell silent for a moment, reflecting on the many moments they had shared with Rose. One by one, they grabbed note cards and pens, their eyes glistening as they recounted their favorite stories. Martha wrote about the time Rose had taught her how to make the perfect pie crust, while Eleanor reminisced about the holiday gatherings where Rose would make her famous peppermint bark. Arthur's card contained a funny mishap involving a souffle that had dramatically deflated but was still devoured with laughter, as Clara penned her memory about how Rose had once surprised her with a cupcake for every day of the week, each adorned with a different theme. She felt a warmth in her chest. It was a reminder that the love they had for Rose would always be a thread woven through their lives, connecting them even in her absence. They nestled the cards into the batter, sealing their memories within the cake, a gesture that felt both poignant and powerful. Clara glanced around, her heart full. "I can't wait to share this with everyone tonight," she said, envisioning the larger gathering where they'd reveal the cake. It's going to be a celebration of everything she meant to us. With the cake safely in the oven, Clara suggested they take a break while it baked. "How about we brew some tea and share more stories?" "I'd love to hear about your favorite recipes from Rose." The group settled around the kitchen table, cups steaming in hand. The warmth of the tea mingled with the sweet anticipation of the cake, and as the minutes passed, they found themselves enveloped in a cocoon of shared laughter and love, the spirit of Rose knitting them together even tighter than before. As they reminisced, Clara felt the weight of her grandmother's legacy like a comforting embrace, one that would carry them through the evening and beyond. They were not just baking. They were preserving memories, creating new ones, and honoring the incredible woman who had touched their lives in so many ways. And with that thought, Clara knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one where they would continue to celebrate Rose's influence, not just through food, but through the bonds they shared.